Now this is a really useful way of storing your tools for your barbecue, keeping you organised and ultimately impressing your guests. Look at this. And you can make this any size you like for as many tools as you like as well. So let's take a look at how I made it. Now the size of your roll depends on the size of your tools. So get your tools first of all and measure them. And you want your roll to be around about 6 inches longer than the length of the tools, and those will sit in the centre like that. I've only got 3, so this is going to be quite wide enough for me. So lay out the tools on your fabric, and width-wise again around about 6 inches wider than the actual tools, and they can be quite close together. Then I'm going to put a pocket on the bottom, so that's one piece of fabric folded in half, and it needs to be the same width as your tools, as your base fabric, sorry. And then that's just going to be sewn in place to hold my tools in place on top of there. So let's start piecing it together. We'll put the pocket on first. So I've got 2 pieces of this fabric, and this is quite heavy ticking. If you've got a very lightweight fabric, you may care to put some stabiliser on the back of it to make it feel heavier. That's going to sit across there. Oh, I've got some ribbon I forgot to tell you. Around about 1 metre, and that's going to tie it together. I'll pop that on in just a second. So let's sew the pocket on first. I'm just going to top stitch across the top of the pocket, purely to make it look a little bit neater. So just sew a straight line all the way across the top. Then this pocket goes onto the bottom of here. Now if the handles on your tool set are very, very thick, you may need to cut your pocket fabric a little bit wider so that you can actually make a proper shape to put them in. If it's too flat, you're not going to sit them in there. But mine are fine. So I'm just going to pin this to hold it in place. And then I'll sew all the way around this section, very close to the edge, because I'm then going to put the second half on top of this. So this is just like a tacking stitch, just to hold it in place. So don't worry if your stitch lines aren't very straight on this one. As long as they're close to the edge, you're not going to see them. In just a second. We go down to the second corner. And then the final side. Okay, now I'm just going to check where my tools are going to go, because I need to put a divider in here. And I think I'm going to keep those 2 together and put one line straight down the middle. If you wanted to make individual little pockets for each tool, then you can do. Just make sure you've got enough fabric in your pocket here. But I just need one straight down the centre. So to mark my centre point, I'll fold everything in half and give it a press right there in the middle. And I can see where the centre is from the crease line. Or you can measure that if you wanted to be really accurate. And I'm going to sew backwards and forwards a couple of times at the top, just to help stop that coming undone. And I'll need to sew a really straight line, because you will see this from the top. Come here. Like so. So now I've got 2 pockets on the front like this. Next thing to do is to put my ribbon on. And that's going to go in the side. So again, when my tools go in, and you can keep remeasuring this, I'll have a little bit of flap that goes over the top to keep that nice and neat. So in the centre of this section is where I want to put my tie, and I'm going to put this on now. So I fold my ribbon in half. This may be a little bit too long, but you can always cut it down afterwards. And that's going to sit about there. And make sure it's facing inwards into your fabric. And I'm just going to put a quick stitch to hold that in place so I can take the pin out. So again, very close to the edge. And then we'll put the back and the front together. Make sure that this ribbon is out of the way because I don't want to sew it through the other side. So I'm just going to push that inside the pocket for now. And I'll lay these two pieces right sides together. Then I'm going to sew all the way around the edge, but just leave a gap on one side so I can turn it. So I'll pop a few pins in there to help stop the fabric moving as I'm sewing. And then we'll sew all the way around. I'm going to leave a gap at the opposite end to the ribbon for turning. Make sure you take your pins out. And just before I turn it the right way round, I'm going to cut across the corners, not through the stitches, but just snip off those corners, and then you don't have so much bulk, which means that your corners will poke out nice and square. So pull all of this through so it's the right way around. I'd give this a press at this point. Or when you've turned it. Give it a press when you've turned it. And then finally, there's my ribbon you see at the side. I'm simply going to stitch all the way around the edge just to help keep that nice and neat. So just take the blunt end of a pen and poke out those corners. And when I top stitch, I'm sewing really close to the edge, but that helps not just to keep the layers of fabric together, but it's going to close over the hole that I left. My hole was just down the side here, so I'll fold in the two side pieces to keep that nice and neat. And sew straight across the top. Then I don't have to hand sew the hole closed. And just sew all the way around all four sides. Gives it a nice professional finish. So I'll trim off all of my loose threads now. Make it look nice and neat. One on the end, one there. And then we're ready to roll. One in here, one in there, there's another one, that folds over the top, roll it up, wrap your ribbon around, It's a little bit long, so I'm just going to cut some of that off. And we're ready to barbie.